Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are in a new book, Ezra. Now, I'm taking some time, as I said, to really dive into, not a deep dive, but to really dive into to give a little understanding of, to me, the seeds of the prophetic. Okay? Now, the reason why that's important is because let me go back to where we left off, and this was the end of Second Chronicles. And what is very interesting about this now, when you study and we kind of look at the layout of the Bible, okay, the layout of the Bible. Let me bring it back up to, because I want us to understand this. This is the layout. Oh, okay. No, where are you at here? Uh, okay. Here we go. All right, there we go. All right, so the layout of the layout of the Bible is like this. So you start with Genesis. Okay, you can see that. So you start with from Genesis, and then we come all the way down to Esther here. That is the first section of the Bible which we are studying. We're currently going to dive into Ezra. And then the next section we said was Job, Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastic, Song of Solomon. That's what is known as the books of poetry, wisdom, things like that. Okay, now we're going to get into that. And those, by the way they are arranged is what is best believed their timeline in terms of the writing. The next section is important to us from the standpoint of the writings of the prophets. Now, the writings of the prophets is divided into two sections, what is called the major prophets, so Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and then Daniel. Okay, so Ezekiel, Daniel, these are called the major prophets. And one of the reasons why they're called the major prophets because they do hold a lot of weight. For example, Daniel is even referred to in the book of Ezekiel. Um, Jeremiah is referred to by Daniel. We'll see that in a moment. Then the other section is the minor, and two reasons for them being called minor. The writings are shorter, and then of course they're less known. Okay, but from Hosea down to Zephaniah, um, Zephaniah. Okay, so from that section there, okay, um, they are I can't see this here. Well, I can't. All right, anyway, so they are long. They should be really grouped with the same timeline as okay, okay. They should be grouped. I hate when this happens here. My thing is freezing up here. Okay, they should be grouped along with Isaiah, that time frame, because that is the beginning of the prophetic voice where God is warning the people of Israel. Okay, let me see it here. Okay. I'm still having trouble here with this. Oh, okay. It's still okay. Y'all can't see it. I don't know why this thing here. Let me come out. All right. You can't see the other three books, but Habakkuk, Zephaniah, and Haggai. I'm sorry, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. All right. I don't know why this is doing this to me here. I'll tell you what. Let me do this. Let me come out of this here. Okay, this is really doing me a number here. I'm gonna come out of this. It's like my oh, that's not what I meant to do, guys. All right, let me go on this thing. Things froze up here. All right, the reason why I was doing it this way, I got to kind of reboot here. But the reason why I was, the point of me doing all of that, okay, explaining this, the timeline is we go from Genesis to Esther. Now, that time frame, okay, which is the same prophetic time frame when you think about Isaiah, and then you go all the way to Malachi. So both end up at the same time frame. And that time frame is you come to what's called the intertestament period. So it is the time between Malachi and then the gospel writings, Matthew. It's about a 500-year period. There's no prophetic voice. So now let's back up for a moment and look at it from this perspective. That let's see if this comes better here. Oh, there we go. I don't know if y'all okay. All right. Now let me try this here again. I had to come out of the screen here. But the prophetic time frame here. All right, here we go. All right, I don't know if you all can see that. All right. Okay, so this you can. I don't know if y'all can read this. Here we go. Yes. All right. So this is my time frame here. So these last three books of what's called the minor prophets. Okay. Okay. So Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, they correspond with where we are. We're going to end up with Esther. Okay. So where we are with Chronicles here is, and when we were reading this last, let me bring Chronicles back up. Come on. Oh, give me some troubles here. Oh, okay. All right. Where I wanted to kind of pick up at is, okay, so here you see the destruction of Jerusalem, this kind of section here. Now, this is the timeline of the king. So the focus is on the kings itself, the life of the king. But what is going on is we see that the Chaldean now, look at verse 18. I'll start reading to verse 17 again. So he brought up against them the king of the Chaldeans, who killed their choice men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary. He had no pity on the young men or young women, elderly or aged. He handed them all over to them. These would be the ones also that rebelled against God. By the way, those who followed God's commands and surrendered as he told them to, they were treated well as people in bondage, but they wasn't brutally destroyed as these people were. Verse 18, he took everything to Babylon, the articles of God's temple, large and small, the treasuries of the Lord's temple, and the treasures of the king and his officials. And the Chaldeans burned God's temple. Now that's where we're going to end up at, with Ezra rebuilding the temple. He tore down Jerusalem wall, and that's going to be Nehemiah, okay? Burned down all his palaces and destroyed all his articles of gold. He deported, watch this, he deported those who had escaped from the sword of Babylon, and they became servants to him and his sons until the rise of the Persian kingdom. Excuse me, this is important. This fulfilled the word of the Lord through Jeremiah in the land enjoying his Sabbaths all the days of his life until 70 years is fulfilled. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, the word of the Lord came through Jeremiah, which was fulfilled. The Lord put it in the mind of King Cyrus of Persia to issue a proclamation through the entire kingdom and also to put it in writing. Now, this is extremely important, this statement. We will come back to this statement. Extremely important here. That statement alone, you'll see. So then he says, this is what the king of Cyrus, Persia says, the Lord of God of heaven has given me all the kingdom of the earth and hath appointed me to build him a temple at Jerusalem in Judah. Whoever among you of his people may go up, and may the Lord his God be with him. Now, I'm going to go to the book of Jeremiah, because remember I told you to remember this statement here. Verse 22, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, the word of the Lord spoken through Jeremiah was fulfilled. So let's look at Jeremiah's word. And because again, as I said, oh, come on. I'm starting to hate this, okay, starting to hate this program here. Gives me a lot of trouble. All right. Jeremiah chapter 25. I want you to read this here. Now, Jeremiah, as I said, came along about 23 years. Look at the verse number 3. From the 13th year of Josiah, son of Ammon, and the king of Judah, until this day, 23 years. I just wanted to see that Jeremiah came along around the last good king of Israel, and then notice it 23 years before the fall of Babylon. But I want you to see verse 11. I'll start reading verse 8. Okay, therefore this is what the Lord of hosts says. Because you have not obeyed my words, I'm going to send for all the families of the north. This is the Lord's declaration. And send for my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. And I will bring them against this land, against its residents, against all of these surrounding nations. And I will completely destroy them and make them a desolation, a derision, and a ruins forever. I will eliminate the sound of joy. I will eliminate the sound of joy and gladness from them, the voice of the groom and the bride, and the sound of the millstone and the light. The whole land. Now, this is what I want you to focus on here, verse 11. This whole land will become a desolate ruin, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. And then he says, and when 70 years are complete, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation. This is the Lord's declaration. Now, he goes on talking about why he's going to punish Babylon. But I want you to understand, notice he said 70 years. Okay? Now, I'm going to go to one other verse of scripture here, and this is found in the book of Daniel. And this is going to be very important now, because remember, timeline-wise in Daniel is doing this 70 years. Jeremiah sees the death of the nation. So by the time we get to the book of Daniel, actually Daniel and Ezekiel, they were at two different locations in the Babylonian Empire. But Daniel, remember, is actually a high official. His prophecy, his kind of life spans the 70 years. So once he's deported, he spends the rest of his life 70 years plus in Babylon. Now, this is what his prophecy is too. Okay, let me go on. Here we go with this. Where you at, Daniel? Oh, where you at? Okay. It's just giving me a lot of trouble here. Oh. Okay, I'll get it, guys. It's okay. Here we go. Daniel chapter 9. All right. I'm going to read the first few verses, and I'm going to skip down. Because during this period of time, of course, Daniel have had a series of just major phenomenal prophecies, and this is going to be one of them. Daniel's life starts off with Nebuchadnezzar, and then he goes now through the Mede and the Persian kingdom. In order to understand that, in order to understand that, you have to understand the image of Daniel. The image, what we see, this human image, starts off with God giving Nebuchadnezzar this dream. And this human image, okay, starts off with 4 world kingdoms. Okay, 4 world kingdoms. And then, should I go into that? Let me go back, because since I'm doing this kind of little, like I say, not a deep dive, guys, but certainly it is okay, let me go back to Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2. All right. If you go back and remember, Nebuchadnezzar had this dream. So I want you to see this dream right here. Okay? So that we can kind of understand. Let me get to the interpretation of the dream. Now, so remember, in the dream, it is a human figure. It's this big, large, colossal human figure. And this is the interpretation. He sees this human figure. Daniel now is going to give him the interpretation. So I'm going to read it because this is important. Verse 31. My king, as you were watching, a colossal statue appeared. The statue, tall and dazzling, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was terrifying. The head of the statue was pure gold. Its chest and its arms were silver. Its stomach and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were partly iron and partly fire clay. As you were watching, a stone broke off without a hand touching it, struck the statue on its feet of iron and fire clay, and crushed them. Then the iron, the fire clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were shattered and became like chaff from the summer threshing floor. The wind carried them away. Not a trace of them could be found. But the stone struck the statue, became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. Your Majesty, now he's talking to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. You are King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and glory wherever people live. Wild animals, birds of the air. He has handed them over to you and made you ruler over all of them. You are the head of gold. Notice he said God was the one who ruled these kingdoms. Okay, so that's for another story, but just make note of that. Verse 39. After you, and this is important because this is the time of Ezra and Nehemiah where we're getting ready to study. After you, there will rise another kingdom inferior to yours, and then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which will rule the whole earth. Now, that's the kind of important part right there. In other words, these kingdoms that Daniel is seeing, that Nebuchadnezzar saw, and that Daniel is explaining. And by the way, from chapter 7 on in Daniel, these are a complete explanation of this dream here. In other words, Daniel from chapter 7 to 12 is interpretation and explanation of this human form that King Nebuchadnezzar is seeing. Verse 40, your fourth kingdom will be as iron, for iron crushes and shatters everything, and like iron that smash it will crush and smash all others. You saw feet, toes, partly the potter's fire clay, partly of iron. It will be divided kingdom, those of his strength of iron will be in it, and you saw iron mixed with clay, and that the toes of the feet were partly iron, partly clay, and the kingdom will be strong and brilliant. You saw it, iron mixed with clay, for the people will be mixed with one another, but will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. Now, I'm going to stop here because we're not going to get this far into this here. I will say, verse 44, in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom would never be destroyed, and that kingdom will not be left to another person. All right. So the interpretation of the dream here, and this is why this is important here, that the interpretation of this world kingdoms, okay, understand this is where we are with this. Okay, so when we get to the second kingdom, the Mede and the Persian, this is where Daniel is going to be given its interpretation to come on, we'll go down here. This is where Daniel will, this is where we're going to end up, and I'll probably pick up with this because I am out of time. Go back to Daniel chapter 9. I'll pick up with this in the next chapter because we're out of time, as I said. But so I wanted us to give kind of an understanding prophetically, right? Prophetically. And I'm going to explain this in the next chapter, but why it is extremely important that prophecy is so important, and why fulfilled prophecy is extremely important. Take just a little more time here, and let me show you this. Okay. The reason why this is important here. Come on. Okay. Give me trouble again. Froze up. Great. All right. I'll do this probably next time because my screen froze up here. Alrighty. All right. What I was going to show you is the timeline. So I'll say this and then close it out. Remember, as a timeline, Jeremiah. He shows up around the kingdom of, well, I can do it this way. All right, let me do it this way. Let me do it this way. All right, guys, hold on here. Let me do it this way. Okay. Yes. So remember our charts of Israel. And so let me kind of use this as a timeline because this is going to be very important. Now, okay, with this here, Jeremiah shows up around 840. I'm sorry, not 640. Between 640 and 79. This is what I want you to see here. Jeremiah shows up at this time. Now, one of the problems that we have when we're reading the Bible, because we have printed books here, okay? Because we have printed books, we forget that is the Bible itself. The name Bible means a collection of books. So these books were written at very different periods of time. So Jeremiah's writings take place, especially, okay, when he first gives his 70 years prophecy. It's between this period of time here. Okay, now think about that. So that is, now Jeremiah, keep this in mind. Isaiah, he gives his prophecy around this time, right? Uzziah, Hezekiah, so around 759, 743 BC. See, my point is that there are different periods of time where prophecy is written. So when we talk about Jeremiah's writings, now keep this in mind, Jeremiah's writings is 70 years before they come to pass. And that's what I want you to see right there. That the fulfilled prophecy, there are a lot of Bible critics that try to just say that prophecy doesn't mean anything. It means everything in terms of fulfilled prophecy. Why? Because when Jeremiah uttered his words, they were 70 years before they actually came to pass, which means when they came to pass, we're talking proof here. And we're talking detailed proof. If you remember, we talked about the coming of Josiah, which is some 300 years, where God names him by name, okay? Now, we're not talking about all of the goofy prophets and prophecies that people are given today. They're fakes and they're phonies. When God prophesies something, it is very, very, when he wants to be, in other words, if he takes the time to be very specific, then it will come to pass just as that. These 70 years were specific. And we'll get into that in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next study.